the Hag of Hollow Beauty. Long ago, nestled deep within a remote mountain village, there lived a woman named Branka. Her beauty was unparalleled. Raven hair, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could light up the darkest night. But as the years passed, Branka's beauty began to fade. She noticed the first wrinkles etching lines into her once flawless skin, and the admiration she once commanded slipped away, drawn instead to the younger women in the village. Envy gripped Branka's heart, turning it cold. She became obsessed with regaining her youth, her days consumed by the sight of her fading beauty in the mirror. The more she fixated on her lost youth, the more isolated she became, shunning the villagers and their warmth. Desperate, Branka sought the counsel of Maria, the village's wise woman. Maria had known Branka since she was a child, and saw the darkness growing within her. The old healer warned her of the dangers of vanity and envy, urging her to embrace the natural passage of time. But Branka, blinded by her desire, would not listen. "I will do anything," Branka pleaded, "anything to be beautiful again." Maria's face fell with sorrow. "Beauty fades, child. It is the kindness in your heart that will endure." But Branka turned her back on Maria's wisdom, determined to reclaim her youth at any cost. She ventured into the forbidden depths of the dark forest, where few dared to tread. On a moonless night, Branka found herself in the heart of the forest, surrounded by ancient, gnarled trees. The air grew colder, heavier, as she approached a twisted, blackened tree standing alone in a clearing. The villagers whispered of a dark entity that dwelled here, an ancient force that could grant wishes, if one was willing to pay the price. As Branka stood before the tree, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the clearing. "Why do you seek me, mortal?" Branka's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to speak. "I seek beauty, eternal youth. I want to be the most beautiful woman in the village forever." The voice chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "And what will you offer in return?" "Anything," Branka whispered, her voice trembling. "I will give you anything." The air around her grew colder still, and from the shadows, a figure began to take shape. A swirling mass of darkness with glowing red eyes. The dark entity loomed over Branka, its presence suffocating. "Your soul," the entity hissed. "In exchange for your beauty, you will give me your soul, and in return, you shall have what you desire. Eternal youth, power, beauty beyond compare." Branka hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. But the thought of returning to the village, aging and forgotten, filled her with dread. "I accept," she said, her voice barely audible. With a final malevolent laugh, the entity lunged at Branka, enveloping her in its darkness. Pain racked her body as she transformed, her skin hardening into iron, her teeth growing sharp and jagged. Her beauty was twisted into something grotesque, monstrous. When the transformation was complete, Branka collapsed to the ground, her body now cold and metallic. She stumbled to a nearby pond, desperate to see her reflection. But when she looked into the water, she recoiled in horror. The face staring back was no longer her own. Her skin was a sickly gray, her eyes hollow, and her teeth. Her teeth were sharp iron, gleaming in the moonlight. She screamed, but there was no one to hear her cries. Branka, now the Iron Hag, returned to the village, but she no longer belonged among the living. Her beauty, the very thing she had cherished above all else, was gone, replaced by a monstrous visage that terrified all who saw her. The villagers whispered of a hideous creature that stalked the night, its iron teeth clattering in the darkness. Driven by her cursed nature, The iron hag felt an insatiable hunger. Her iron body needed more than food, more than mere flesh. She craved the very essence of life. One night, she crept into the village under the cover of darkness and entered the home of a young family. Inside, a child slept peacefully in her bed, her breath slow and steady. The iron hag, driven by a dark instinct, crouched over the girl, her iron fingers trembling. She opened her mouth, revealing her jagged teeth, and began to draw in the child's breath. With each exhale, the child's life force flowed into the hag, and she felt herself grow stronger, her iron skin softening ever so slightly. The next morning, the child awoke pale and weak, her energy drained. The villagers were baffled, attributing her sudden illness to a mysterious sickness. But Maria knew better. She sensed the dark magic at work and feared what Branka had become. As the nights passed, more children fell ill, their breath stolen by the iron hag. The villagers grew desperate. Turning to Maria for help, she warned them of the creature that stalked their village and revealed the truth to a few trusted souls. Branka, the woman they once knew, had made a pact with darkness and become a monster. The village was in turmoil, gripped by fear and despair. Parents kept their children close, sleeping with iron charms under their pillows, in the hope of warding off the hag. But the iron hag was relentless, her hunger driving her to find new victims. Among those affected was Stefan, a farmer who lived on the edge of the village with his daughter, Anya. Anya was a bright and lively child, the apple of her father's eye. But one morning, Stefan found her pale and listless, her usual cheerfulness gone. Maria visited their home, her face grim as she examined the girl. "She has been touched by the iron hag," Maria said softly. "Her breath has been stolen." Stefan's heart filled with rage and sorrow. He had lost his wife years ago, and could not bear the thought of losing Anya as well. Determined to save his daughter, Stefan vowed to find the iron hag and end her reign of terror. Maria, knowing the only way to break the curse, told Stefan of the iron heart that lay deep within the hag's lair in the dark forest. "If you can destroy the heart, you will end her curse and free the souls of the children she has taken," she explained. "But beware, for the forest is treacherous, and the hag is powerful." Stefan gathered a group of brave villagers, including his friend Yarek, the blacksmith. They armed themselves with torches and iron weapons, prepared to face the horrors that awaited them in the dark forest. The night was cold and moonless when Stefan and his companions ventured into the dark forest. The twisted trees seemed to close in around them, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. As they moved deeper into the woods, they could hear the faint sound of iron teeth clattering in the distance. Finally, they reached the hag's lair. A dark, twisted cave hidden deep within the forest. The entrance was guarded by gnarled roots that seemed to writhe like serpents. But Stefan and his men pressed on, their determination unshaken. Inside the cave, they found the iron hag hunched over a small child, her iron teeth clattering as she stole the child's breath. With a roar, Stefan charged at her, his torch held high. The flames licked at her iron skin, causing her to scream in pain, a sound so chilling that it seemed to shake the very walls of the cave. The hag fought back with a ferocity born of desperation, her iron teeth snapping at the men as they tried to fend her off. But Stefan, driven by his love for Anya, managed to land a blow that sent the hag reeling. As the battle raged on, Yarek the blacksmith spotted a faint glow at the back of the cave. He realized it was the hag's iron heart, pulsing with a dark, malevolent light. With a shout, he called to Stefan, and together they made their way to the heart. But before they could strike, The iron hag let out a piercing scream that echoed through the cave, reverberating off the walls like the howl of a banshee. She lunged at Stefan and Yarek with renewed fury, her iron claws slashing at them with a speed and strength that belied her twisted form. She knocked Stefan to the ground, his sword clattering away from him as she pinned him down, her iron teeth inches from his throat. Yarek swung his hammer, aiming for the hag's head, but she moved with a natural speed, dodging the blow and striking him across the chest, sending him crashing into the cave wall. The torch he held flew from his grasp, plunging the cave into near darkness. With a sinister grin, the iron hag advanced on Yarek, her red eyes glowing with malevolent glee. The blacksmith struggled to rise, his chest burning with pain. But the hag was upon him before he could recover, Stefan struggling to his feet, saw Yarek's peril and knew he had to act quickly. Gritting his teeth, he lunged for his fallen sword, grabbing it just as the hag prepared to deliver the final blow to Yarek. With a desperate cry, Stefan swung the sword with all his might, catching the hag off guard. The blade slashed through the air, striking the hag in the back. She screamed, a sound so high-pitched and filled with fury that it nearly drove the men to their knees. But Stefan pressed on, slashing at her again and again, driving her away from Yarek and towards the glowing heart. Seeing the opening, Yarek grabbed his hammer and joined Stefan in the assault. The two men fought with a renewed fury, forcing the iron hag back towards the heart. She lashed out wildly, her iron claws gouging deep into Stefan's arm, but he ignored the pain, focusing only on the glowing heart and the end of their nightmare. Finally, with a mighty swing of his hammer, Yarek struck the heart. The iron cage around it shattered with a deafening crack, and the heart began to pulsate wildly, its dark light flickering like a dying flame. The iron hag let out a final, agonized cry, her body convulsing as the curse that had sustained her began to unravel. With one last scream, the iron hag's body crumbled into dust, her iron teeth clattering to the ground. The heart flickered once more, then went out, plunging the cave into silence. When Stefan and the villagers returned, they found that the children, who had been affected by the hag's curse, were beginning to recover. Anya, too, slowly regained her strength, her color returning as the days passed. The villagers rejoiced, grateful that the nightmare was finally over. But Maria, the wise woman, warned them that the darkness Branka had unleashed could never be truly eradicated. The Iron Hag's story became a cautionary tale passed down through generations, a grim reminder of the dangers of vanity, envy, and the dark forces that lurk just beyond the edge of the light. The villagers hung iron charms above their doors and whispered prayers to keep the Iron Hag at bay, fearing that her twisted spirit might one day return to seek revenge. And so, the legend of the Iron Hag lived on, a story that haunted the dreams of children and adults alike, a reminder that some pacts can never be undone. Thank you for joining me tonight. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.